Everyone, welcome. Councillors, Cabinet members, members of the public. As usual, the agenda papers and the public forum submissions are available on our website. You can see them there. Can I please draw your attention to the emergency evacuation procedure, which is outlined on the agenda and is currently being displayed on the screen, probably being distracted as Councillor King takes a seat. The meeting is being webcast, so please can I remind everyone to speak into the microphone to ensure you are clearly heard. Agenda item 2 is public forum. All statements and questions will be taken at the time the relevant agenda item is being discussed. I'll reply to questions or I will ask the relevant cabinet member to respond at that time. Agenda item 3, apologies for absence. We have 2 today, Councillor Craig Cheney and Councillor Nicola Beach. Agenda item 4, declarations of interest. Tom, you have one right today?
Yeah, in relation to item 10, my partner works for Defra, so I'll step out for that item.
Okay, thanks very much. Any others need to be raised? No, okay, thank you. Agenda item 5, matters referred for consideration by scrutiny or full council. There are none on this occasion. Agenda item 6, reports from scrutiny commissions. There are none on this occasion. Agenda item 7, I think I'll feedback on a couple of, or a few quick things. One is that we had our city gathering just a couple of Fridays ago with over 250, nearly 300 people in attendance. The focus was on the cost of living crisis, and we spent some time just scoping out the nature of the challenge we and other cities are facing across the UK and around the world right now. We heard from a number of our city partners just around what they are doing right now to support people in the face of the immediate cost of living crisis. And we threw forward as well to what we can expect to come our way down the tracks that we have to be prepared for as a city. And in line with that also, we talked about the warm places work we are going to be doing, which is almost sounds kind of wartime really, but working with community organisations and partners around the city to set up warm places that people can go to if they need to when come in the autumn when people need to turn their heating on again. We'll be looking at a number of kind of characteristics of these places, and we're exploring what we can do at the moment because we are working on this with our partners. But it'll be a warm place, there'll be homework support, services there, financial advice. Hopefully we'll be able to align it with some of the feeding programs we've got in the city as well to tackle hunger in Bristol as well. But a real kind of a real community hub where we can bring people together, break down isolation as we go into those colder months. So I would just say anyone in the city, any organisations who would like to contribute in any way to that, be it you have a place, we won't use all the places, but we are looking for places for financial support, food support, educational support. We need the cash, as I just said, would be very welcome. And this really will need to be about a city mobilisation to help us all through these challenging times. This weekend, we welcome the Big Tent Ideas Festival to Bristol. This is, again, a fantastic thing for the city. I spoke at a Big Tent, I think it was last year. It was either last year or the year before, invited by George Freeman, who's I think he's a thoroughly decent guy. And off the back of that and for other reasons, they asked if they could come to Bristol, and all this year, got to give a big hand to Hannah Shackelford in the office, in my office, Mayor's office upstairs, has worked to bring this big tent together. And it is what it says on the tin, really, a big tent of ideas. So you see the range of people coming to speak is very broad, voluntary sector, public sector, private sector, a range of political parties will all be speaking about some of the biggest issues of my time. I got landed with cancel culture, which I was concerned, how did I end up talking about cancel culture? So I was like a hospital pass. But nonetheless, I've done some thinking. Good article by David, or an interview with David Olasuga over the weekend has helped out with some of that thinking, but a whole range of issues. It does speak into, and it's worth paying credit to George Freeman, because he was the founding force for the big ideas for this. And, with that presence, with him being a member of parliament as well, we got ministers and shadow cabinet coming to speak as well, alongside local people in Bristol. I do think that one of the biggest threats to our politics is just the poverty of our debate. I mean, at the last full council, I remember, there were 3 points made, weren't there? Mark Weston made the point of, actually, when we're not in full council, the councillors behave like grown-ups, and he said that maybe we need to do a grown-up debate in the chamber. He kind of shared that there is a performance element to full council, and then Councillor Paul O'Rourke, obviously the new Lord Mayor now, in her opening comments, pointed out that the quality of debate in the council chamber is being poor. Like I said, I've made that before. And I think it's something that really, actually, as I've been reflecting on the council culture as well, it feeds into that kind of binary, good versus evil, purity test, you haven't met the standards type debate that doesn't help us deal with a complicated world that requires multidimensional complex solutions, in which most solutions that we come up with will have downsides that people are all ready to point out to, without saying how they would deal with the other downsides of the other potential ways out. And I hope that the big tent will be an opportunity for us to talk about the quality of debate, but actually practice a better quality discussion, in which rather than slinging, slingshots and arrows and pointing out how other people don't meet whatever vague idea of ideological or political purity someone is putting out there, that actually you can get something from most people, get some sort of an idea from most people, and actually that if we let arguments bounce off each other, we usually end up with a better quality argument. Bearing in mind, the need is to be trustworthy in that process as well. So hopefully we'll see some good integrity on display during those times as well. The last thing we do want to do is just point to some of our the changes. I mean, Bristol Post ran an article just a week or so ago. What a champion of the city they've been over the decades, and talked about all the changes that are happening within the city. And it just struck me when we went up to the arena a couple of weeks ago, the YTL Arena, Bristol, and had that performance by Queen and Adam Lambert, that the city's changing. And whether it be world-class acts, world-size acts like Queen coming to the city, whether it be being invited to TED to share ideas on how we can transform urban finance to decarbonize the world's cities, whether it be asked to be part of or to be the representative on the Commonwealth Local Government Forum, feeding into the Commonwealth Heads of Government meetings, or to contribute to the UN General Assembly or the Mayor's Migration Council. For a city of 465,000 people, I think our presence on the national and international stage is pretty something right now. And it was interesting, I was out with the other day, I just met some new people, and talking about Bristol, and I said, did you know that we were now the chair of the core cities, UK core cities? The first time that chair has ever come out of the north. I said, no. Well, why does the city, why don't we celebrate that leadership? Chairing the LJ City Regions Board. It's not something that's picked up. Just the significance of the contribution we as a city are making to the national and international agenda right now is probably out of proportion to anything that we've had before. Whether it be from homes being built to our leadership on the SDGs, and really looking forward to future delivery still to come in our final 2 years. And not least, I'm particularly excited around what's happening around Temple Quarter, the new university campus, the Temple Island site, and our hopes, bearing in mind that we first met in 2017 to talk about Temple Meads and Temple Quarter, our hopes is that very soon we will see the fruits of that 5-year journey we've gone on to get Bristol the train station. I don't know if I'm allowed to call it train station technically, but anyway, the train station that a world-class city like Bristol actually deserves. So that's enough for me from on Chair's business. So let's move on to item 8, which is the additional provision framework, therapists, mentors and tutors approved providers list. And Asha, you're going to lead this one.
Yeah, thanks, Marvin. So this report to Cabinet is seeking approval for a new flexible framework for the purchase of additional education, health and care plan provision at a cost of up to £16.3 million over 5 years, and seeks and authorises both the Exec Director for People in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Children, Education and Equalities to take all the steps required to procure the flexible framework and to extend or vary the contracts in line with our own procurement routes and maximum budget envelopes. As way of background, we need a framework to purchase education, health and care plan provision as required for children and young people, which includes therapies, tutoring and mentoring to a value of 6.3 million. The contract is known as an approved provider list, but it is technically a flexible framework. The majority of children and young people with special educational needs or disabilities will have their needs met within local mainstream early years settings, schools and or colleges. However, for some children and young people in our city, it may be necessary for the local authority to make provision for additional support. And I'm not going to go into the descriptor of what an educational health and care plan is because it's set out quite clearly in the report, but we are seeking approval for this new flexible framework going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Asha. So we've received one public forum statement and one public forum question on this. Statements from Jen Smith, who's not in attendance today. Question is from Councillor Christine Townsend.
Thank you. I welcome this. I think it's really good that we've got quality assurance coming in, and I can see how such a contract would help us bring the, hopefully bring some of the high needs deficit under control. I'm just wondering if parents and carers will have access to the list. I recognise maybe not the contract, obviously, because that's between yourselves and whoever the providers are, but around the quality assurance, because parents are also purchasers of therapists and mentors with their direct payments?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor Townsend. So families who are already using direct payments have not been included as a source of provision, as their payments are not subject to procurement regulations. Section 3.38 of the SEND Code of Practice states that a direct payment is where individuals receive the cash to contract, purchase and manage services themselves. Therefore, parents and carers will need to make their own contracting arrangements with these organisations, but we will be publishing the list of providers who have been successful in their application to join the framework on the local offer, and this list will be updated as and when providers join. And of course, parents and carers are more than welcome to use this as a guide on who they would like to purchase services from.
Thank you.
Did you have a supplementary? No? Okay. Okay, thank you for that. Any other Cabinet members wish to comment on this item? No? Okay. Okay, thank you for that. Thanks for your question. Let me hand back to you now, Asha, to take the decision which I support and which will now be displayed on the screen.
So in terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report.
Thanks very much, Asha. So on to agenda item 9, permission to spend Home Office Safer Streets 4 grant. Ellie, you're bringing this item.
Thank you. I'm pleased to introduce Safe Streets 4 grant. This builds and improves on previous Home Office bids for Safe Streets 1 through 3, noticeably this time with the weighting of criteria to identify priority areas of concern, shifting from police data, which has only given us part of the picture, to putting greater emphasis on local stakeholder expertise and resident consultation and feedback. And this has informed and shaped the area of focus for the bid, which will predominantly look at South Bristol, and the scope will include antisocial behaviour, crime and violence against women and girls. A key delivery stream for this is meaningful community engagement, training, co-designing solutions and building trusting relationships with communities. And this ensures 2 things: that the communities with lived experience of the aforementioned priorities are given the agency they need to influence and enact change, and that there is legacy work that will continue once the funding ends. The focus of the bid also aligns with work on serious youth violence that the Mayor, Deputy Mayor Asher Craig and myself worked on with young people last winter. And the bid will action some of the key concerns raised in the conversations that we had with young people in South Bristol, and will contribute towards creating a safer and healthier environment for them.
Thanks, Ellie. So we've just had one statement. It's with you again, Councillor Townsend. You have a minute, but we'll be relaxed.
Thank you. Myself and Councillor Dyer really welcome this. This is in addition to, hopefully, if you're successful, the Community Resilience Funds, which is also going into this area. And I know that Councillor Dyer will touch upon the kind of East Street vision around this for later. So I suppose what we're both sat here saying that we really would like to engage with this, obviously, into our community, if we're successful, and understand the split of the almost $1 million if it comes through. And also want to take this opportunity to kind of emphasise that Southville often has a reputation of huge affluence, but there are evidently pockets of very serious deprivation that are very entrenched and kind of need ongoing kind of support and redevelopment within that area. So we're really supportive of this. Thank you.
Thanks very much. So we've heard nothing in. Any other Cabinet members like to speak on this? Asha?
Again, I need to add that this is really welcomed. As Councillor King pointed out, we had a series of discussions a few months ago with children and young people in and around South Bristol. So this bid will really help to address some of the issues that were raised there, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to secure that funding. Thanks.
Ellie, we'll give you the final word, but I think in just building off what Asha said and in response to Councillor Townsend's point, I mean, we could do some, I'm sure there's been conversations had already, but maybe do some sessions with councillors who have a particular interest in giving some shape. We could do that. Helen, did you have a comment as well?
Well, just to say similarly that I understand that if we're successful, some of this money might come to Hartcliffe and BS13. And there's some really great community organisations who would be up for having that conversation with us about how to shape those bids. And you might be aware that a couple of months ago, a group of young women organised their own Reclaim the Streets march in Hartcliffe against, and these were their words, which was shocking because they're all school students, about the rape culture in the schools. So I think that those kind of young people engaging with it, it's more likely to lead to successful outcomes rather than it being done to us, if you know what I mean.
Thank you, Ellie. Well, let me hand back to you now to take the decision which I support, which will be displayed on the screen, but if you have any final comments, please share them.
Yeah, thanks very much for your comments. I'm really happy to engage. It's great to see that you are as enthusiastic about it as we are. And yeah, it is really reassuring. We met with those young girls actually who did the Reclaim the Night March, and it was very moving, and to see their passion for that. So it's great to see this money going where it really is needed and will be well spent. But in terms In terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report.
Thank you. So on to agenda item 10, which is the Defra Innovation Resilience Programme Fund. And I'm going to bring this item because... Oh, Tom. I know, see you later. Conflict of interest exit. Thank you. So I'm going to introduce this report because Councillor Beach isn't here. So in their 2020 budget, the government announced £200 million, a £200 million innovation fund to help meet the aims set out in the Environment Agency's National Flood and Coastal Erosion Risk Management Strategy. 150 million was allocated to the Flood and Coastal Resilience Innovation Programme, where 25 local areas will demonstrate how practical, innovative actions can work to improve resilience to flooding. So in April 2021, Defra announced that a partnership with us as the lead partner, alongside South Gloucestershire Council, Wessex Water and the Environment Agency, was successful in its bid to take part in the programme. So the Frome Catchment Innovation Programme is our project to improve the river's resilience to flooding, and by working across the whole catchment, the project brings benefits in multiple locations. So for example, creating new ponds and woody dams will improve water quality, ecology and sustainable land management, as well as helping to reduce flood risk. Projects like this are vital to supporting our ambitions to regenerate brownfield city centre land, to safely build housing and new community spaces in areas currently at risk of flooding. The Frome catchment is largely rural, but it all flows downstream and converges in St Jude. So it's vital we take a whole system approach and work across boundaries as we want to create a more resilient city centre and protect our densely populated urban areas. To unlock the funding needed to deliver the programme of works, the Cabinet paper authorises submission of the outline business case to the Environment Agency for assurance and approval of up to £7.3 million grant funding. So I recommend it to Cabinet. We've had no public forum on this report. Any Cabinet members wish to comment on this? Okay. I'll just, again, doubling up here, it's just vitally important. We've been talking to our neighbours in North Somerset, Baines and South Gloucestershire about we take a whole West of England approach to getting our flood protections in. It is about building the resilience of the city, of our populations, of businesses, but more than just actually resistance to harm. It creates space for good because it brings more land into play for us to build the homes, build the schools, make sure we protect the employment land that the city needs. So this is a hugely encouraging piece of work that Nicola's been leading on, and it must be just the first step to a comprehensive West of England wide flood delivery basically, flood defence delivery, and that we think will cost over 200 million in its entirety. So it needs to happen. There is no alternative. But anyway, this is step one, and it's a very welcome step. So in terms of the decision to be made today, I need to say this order. I will now take the decision, which will be displayed on the screen. And in terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report. So on the agenda item 11, Integrated Community Equipment Services, Award and Contract Extension. Helen.
I know it doesn't sound the most exciting report from the title, does it? But it's one of those, it's a tidying up report, but it's also a vital service. So the community equipment is what it says on the tin. And we all know about the delays from discharge from hospital. So it's absolutely essential to get people out of hospital with equipment that they might need, whether that's mobility aids, having their bathroom altered, all of those kinds of things that we know can mean that people can return back to living in their own homes. This is an extension just till October, because after that we're going to have a ICS, I've got to say now, not CCG, wide contract. So there will be economies of scale of working with our neighbouring authorities and the CCG/ICS to deliver this, and so that's a big contract, well over £5 million for that part of the contract. So this gets us through to that point. The contract has already been extended once, so it has been a bit messy, but hopefully this report tidies it up and puts us in a good position for recontracting with them from October, but together with our partners.
Thanks very much, Helen. We've received no public forum on this report. Any other Cabinet members? I'd like to say thank you for doing the hard yards. and the glory doesn't easily come in adult social care, does it? But it's usually when, well, we've said before, isn't it? It's when things go wrong that people pay attention to it. But you know, it's just constant. And actually, even Helen, that visit we took to the Meals on Wheels service as well.
Fantastic,
These things are happening without much fanfare, but 8,500 meals every month going out to some of those vulnerable people. And it's not just the food; it's the social contact. I was remembering, I was particularly touched by that story. One of the workers told us that there was an older woman just sat in a house, no TV, no radio playing, just sat there waiting for the person to arrive with the meal, because that was what she looked forward to every day, and that was her human contact. And this is, you know, these areas that you're responsible for are just going on making a difference in people's lives every day. So, you know, I'm really appreciative of that. But let me hand back to you now to take the decision, which I support, and which will be displayed on the screen.
Thanks very much. And I mean, just to say that the rest of today I've been at a conference down at Ashton Gate, which was very handy for me from home. But one of the speakers there was from the CQC, and she did remark upon the fact that the care provision in Bristol, we've got, I think it's 92%, is it, at good or outstanding of the care providers, and that's way above the national average. So actually that provision and working with those partners across the piece means that we do put absolutely front and centre the best service that we can for our residents. So in terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report. Thank you.
I should have looked to my right and noticed Hugh as well, sat in there quietly there, our exec director. Thank you, Hugh. Okay, so let's on to agenda item 12, Old City and King Street pedestrianisation scheme, full business case. Don, you're bringing this item.
Thanks, Marvin. This paper seeks Cabinet's approval to make permanent the improvements we have made in the Old City and King Street, making it more accessible to pedestrians, improving the street scene in these key city centre areas. Cabinet will be aware that we took the decision in 2020 to restrict vehicle traffic on King Street in order to allow people to walk and cycle more easily through the area, and that's been very successful. This also provided crucial space for hospitality businesses to use outside their buildings to facilitate social distancing and allow people to take advantage of the warmer weather while enjoying food and drink. Excuse me. Similarly, reflecting the changes in journeys we saw during the initial lockdowns of 2020, we took the opportunity to bring forward our plans to part pedestrianised areas of the Old City. This too has allowed for easier passage for pedestrians and cyclists through one of the most historic areas of the city, allowing people to access businesses and leisure facilities safely and providing more space for cultural activities, such as the Bristol Light Festival, which many of us, including myself and my wife, enjoyed in March, and it was really good. Securing funding to make these interventions permanent allows us to continue to prioritise active travel and public transport to these retail and hospitality centres, improve air quality and build resilience into the historic centre of Bristol by encouraging more commercial, cultural and tourist activity. The paper today therefore seeks permission to submit the full business case for these schemes for funding from WECA and, if accepted, procure and award the necessary contracts to deliver the schemes required. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. So we did receive a public forum statement from Dave Redgewell on behalf of Bristol Disabled Equalities Forum. But Dave's not with us today. I think he's in hospital at the moment. So where's the camera? If I can look at you, Dave. I'm sure he's watching on YouTube live stream. as is his dedication to Bristol. So hope you're doing okay, Dave, and we look forward to seeing you back in here in the not too distant future. We had a question from Councillor Edwards, but she's not here today either. So that's it for public forum. Any comments from any cabinet members on this item? Kai.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment on this really. Yeah, thanks Don for finding the money, because see, we started this project as an administration a few years ago, despite previous administrations saying they were going to do it and never actually doing it. We did it. We weren't sure if we'd have the money to do the high quality finish, but we were going to do it anyway. And you found the money now to make, you know, to finish the job and make it look nice for people. I know as part of Dave's statement, he was talking about how we can make the areas more disability friendly and more pedestrian friendly. A lot of the money will be connected to dropping curbs and things like that, so it should make it a lot easier for people walking around on sticks or in wheelchairs and things like that. So I think Dave would probably be pleased to hear that if he's obviously watching. But no, I think it's a fantastic project that this administration has delivered on, despite many years in the city of people talking about it.
Thanks very much, Kai. Asha?
Yeah, just really following on from that point, really, and and kudos to the new Disability Equality Commission, of which Dave is now one of the commissioners. And I think it's really important that we take on board the views of that commission in terms of our planning, all our service delivery, really. So yeah, I look forward to seeing the fruits of that labour. The other thing I also wanted to say is that I just wanted to remind everybody that a couple of weeks ago we launched a new initiative called Building Bristol, where we're looking at encouraging particularly the larger construction initiatives happening across the city to address employment and skills, and actually kind of look at recruiting far more people in our city to kind of work. And I'm not just talking about construction, I'm talking about both at the beginning and the end. And even though this isn't a 1,000 square foot, I just want to remind everybody again that I think in terms of any pieces of work that we commission like this, we really need to encourage those organisations who get contracted to do this piece of work, encourage them to also employ local labour, take on apprentices, etc. So I just wanted to make that point. Thanks.
Thanks, Asha. If there are no others, let me hand back to you now, Don, to take the decision which I support and which will be displayed on the screen. If you wanted to make any final comments too, you're welcome at that, or you can just make the decision.
Thank you. Yeah, my greetings also to Dave, who is in hospital. This has been a cross-portfolio piece of work involving enforcement, waste, just about everything actually. So I want to pay tribute and thank Nicola Beach, who's really, basically kicked butt on this a lot and worked really hard on it. I also like to thank officers because, these kind of schemes are really, really tough. They involve an enormous amount of work. And if you look at social media, you'd think it was just a matter of, flicking a switch sometimes. But actually, it's been daily going down there, talking to people, educating people. And we've got several really dedicated officers who put an awful lot of time into this. But I believe that this and other street space schemes like Princess Victoria Street, Cottermouth, are going to be models for the rest of the city. So the learning that we're gaining now is stuff that we're going to take round to the other areas of the city. So thank you. In terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations set out in the report.
Thanks, Don. It's with you again for agenda item 13, zero emission transport city.
Thank you. This is potentially enormously exciting. This paper seeks Cabinet's approval to receive a grant of £500,000 of revenue development funding from the Department of Transport to accelerate our plans to decarbonise our transport network. Cabinet will be pleased to note that Bristol was among one of only 3 cities in England to be awarded funding as part of a national pilot to become a zero emissions transport city. This reflects the huge progress we have made to make Bristol a carbon neutral and climate resilient city, and it highlights the confidence government have in us to deliver a sustainable and reliable transport system for the city. We will use this funding to develop plans to further decarbonise our transport network, including creating a zero emission zone in the city centre to make all servicing, deliveries and public transport access zero emission by 2027, installing additional electric vehicle charging points at council-run car parks, progressing a new park and ride for the M32 to provide sustainable transport options for commuters and visitors to the city, electrification of the city's bus fleet, installation of on-street cycle hangars across the city, and improving freight consolidation and last-mile solutions such as e-cargo bikes. This is an exciting package of innovative projects that will continue the transformation of Bristol's transport network that the city has needed for years. It ensures we will continue to deliver on this administration's ambitions for transport, to connect people to people, people to jobs, and people to opportunity, to improve air quality, reduce inequalities and improve residents' health and well-being, and to reduce the price the planet pays for Bristol's growth. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Don. We did receive 2 public forum statements and 1 question, but it's from the same people as last time. Dave, we know you're out there, and Councillor Edwards, who's not here. So that takes us straight on to any comments Cabinet members may wish to make. Well, I mean, I'll just add here, I think that the transport is an ongoing challenge for City as we try to meet the needs of a growing population, as I keep saying, growing by 30,000 over the next 28 years or so. But nearly 100,000, I should say, by 2050, in a crowded place with an existing transport problem and a housing crisis. So how we move people around and make it possible for people to move around, to meet their needs, and to interact with other people, to get access to jobs and opportunity is vitally important. It's also important, I know there's a lot of interest in this 15-minute city, and there are some elements of that are positive. But let's remember, we want the whole city to be accessible to the whole city. There is a potential downside of 15-minute cities. You end up with not just villages, but ghettos, right, where people are locked in. So having transport options that offer the full range of possibilities, from active travel to electric travel to get around Bristol, is going to be critical. And all these wins, these are small wins, relatively small wins in the grand scheme of things, scale to what we need to deliver in terms of mass transit. But all these small wins continually add up and make a positive intervention. So, I really appreciate your leadership on this, Don. Oh, did we? Okay. Well. Okay, so it's a bit after, but I was told you just walked in, so you had a statement as well, so we won't be rigid about it. Let's let you make your statement, Councillor Stafford Townsend. So you have a minute, okay?
Thank you. So as I've sort of said in the statement, we desperately need to reduce our emissions, and we need a fully functioning sort of joined up cycle infrastructure. Removing cycle lanes isn't the solution to that, because we need to be increasing our sustainable travel options. And one of the other problems is, well, we've got an increasing amount of flooding issues on our cycle lanes. And I guess more of a question than a statement, but what are we doing to reduce the flooding on our cycle lanes? And what are we doing to ensure that there's a high quality of cycle provision being implemented and so that we don't have the problems that we're currently seeing on Nelson Street or, say, Commercial Road at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, so it was a statement, but thank you for that. Okay, so if there's no other cabinet comments, were there? So let me hand back to you now, Don, to take the decision which I support and which will now be displayed on the screen.
Thank you. Yeah, it's £500,000 just to really draw up a list of our ambitions, which is exciting. And the DFT hunted us out for this because Bristol's reputation in transport is still very, very high, as ever, in both nationally and internationally. And I'll be off to Glasgow straight after this meeting for the Police Network, which is part of Horizon Europe, which we've been invited to speak at as well, and it's invited to be part of, which we were part of many years ago in Helen's day when she had this role. So it's good to be in demand and good to be on the national and international stage, because we need the financial support for one thing, to be brutally blunt. In terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations set out in the report.
Thanks, Don. Much appreciated. So agenda item 14, Levelling Up Fund bid opportunities, and I'm going to introduce this report, this paper, which agrees 2 submissions to the government's second Levelling Up Fund, Firwood Broadway Investment and Family Cycling Centre in Lawrence Weston. So the Bristol Family Cycling Centre is a multi-million pound capital bid, estimated at between 12 and 13 million pounds, with local match funding of approximately 10%. And it will build and operate a new purpose-built regional cycling centre, incorporating a competition standard cycling track in Lawrence Weston. And this will be a flagship centre, providing a regional hub to increase cycling levels and physical activity, as well as community programmes and additional employment training and local community inclusion benefits. And secondly, Firwood Broadway is within the top 1.5% most deprived areas in England. The number of people claiming unemployment related benefits is 60% higher in Firwood than in Bristol as an average. And in our recent quality of life survey showed only 66.7% of local residents were satisfied with the local area. So nearly 34% indicating they had shopped in their local street at least once a week. And we hope that this investment, as well as other plans in South Bristol, will support important local high streets to flourish after the pandemic. So the bid for this scheme will be around £12 million with local match funding of 10%. So we can deliver investment beyond the activity already underway, including enhancing the public realm and proceeding with new investment in library and other community facilities. The components will form an integral part of the government's ambition to deliver extensive improvements to of the councils, I should say, not the government's, ambition to deliver extensive improvements to Firwood Broadway and its immediate area. So individual elements are aligned to enable additional homes, increased and better quality community and commercial floor space with more opportunity for recreation and cultural activity set within a much greener and a more attractive environment. So as the report sets out, it's important to note that there are specific criteria set out by the Levelling Up Fund. So there are other projects across the city which we would want to support if it were possible, but challenging timelines for proposals in particular needing to be shovel ready, and the funding condition which requires the council as the lead authority to accept responsibility for meeting any costs over and above the government contribution, including potential cost overruns and the underwriting of any funding contributions expected from third parties, prevents this being a way to level up all of our ambitions. However, I am pleased to support the 2 projects proposed, and which both enjoy the backing of the respective MPs. Which is another condition of the fund, and I recommend it to the Cabinet. So we have received 3 public forum statements and 1 question. The first statement is from Michelle Tedder. So you have one minute for your statement. Thank you very much.
North West Alliance and Fulwood Broadway Working Group welcomed the report on the Levelling Up Fund bid and the opportunity to put forward a multi-million-pound capital bid for Fulwood Broadway. Whilst we support the application, we believe there's a need to consider the regeneration decision-making in a joined-up way with a co-design approach central to the process. The benefits of a coordinated approach will be the council will benefit as the investment will deliver sustainable and integrated improvements for future generations. The street space will be well connected to the new proposed housing sites. This is critical to enhancing the area. And this is a unique opportunity, and getting it right first time will avoid the risk of having to spend more money later putting things right. The vision of the Fulwood Broadway Working Group is a community-driven partnership that helps achieve good quality facilities, retail, homes, community buildings, leisure and play.
Just 10 seconds.
Okay, we've been attempting to influence the development proposals with Create Streets and the council. The prospect of the levelling up bid means there'll be even more reasons to bring all the development elements together. Therefore, we renew our request for a new master plan and co-design approach that can achieve the community-driven and inspired improvements.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have next up, we have a statement from Tony Dyer. Tony.
Thank you. It is always welcome to see investment going into South Worcester, as hopefully is the case for Fulwood. So when I talk about the need for investment in another part of South Worcester, I want to make it absolutely clear. We don't want to say that instead of, we say it as additional to. So in this case, we're talking about East Street in our ward. We've already heard earlier about East Street is in the one of the most deprived areas of our ward. And it was good to hear earlier on from Councillor King about the bid going in for funding to tackle antisocial behaviour. We also are working on a community resilience fund to get funding to tackle the deprivation in the area as well. What I really want to do is just highlight that there is the street vision that has been put together by Bedminster Bid with support of developers who are working on the Bedminster regeneration. And we understand, we would like to understand how we can work with officers and the administration to help fund that proposal, because along with the other work that's being done by the council in terms of the Community Resilience Fund and the Safer Streets, regenerating East Street itself will also combat a lot of the deprivation in that part of the city, as well as providing a high street fit for the future of our city.
Thanks, Tony. I appreciate your statement. The next is from Councillor Goodman.
Hello. I endorse the statement of Fulwood Broadway Working Group. I've worked as part of the group since its inception 18 months ago, and it's had various meetings at least once a fortnight since then, sometimes with several additional meetings a week with various groups on retail, the library and design of the public realm, which is a huge amount of local volunteer time. We've appreciated the regular attendance and participation of council officers at these meetings and at the local market to discuss proposals with local residents and working together on the recent co-design workshop with Create Streets. However, we've been very disappointed in the responses of some council officers, particularly on pre-planning consultations. They've at times been extremely dismissive of our responses to consultations, telling us it's too late to make changes. I wonder what is the point of these consultations other than to tick a box. We've been told the master plan developed a decade ago is sufficient.
Just 10 seconds.
Yeah, but things have obviously changed in the previous decade and previous 2 years even. Do hope the bid is successful, but I call on the council to work with the local community, including its active group, on the co-design of the Fulwood Broadway as a whole, so the residents get the centre they deserve and not a rushed piecemeal development. Thanks.
Okay, we've had a question from Councillor Mack. Would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, thank you. I understand that we are able to submit a bid per constituency, and we submitted a couple, and I was just wondering why we weren't able to submit bids for other constituencies, and I guess also if there's plans to do that. Thanks.
Well, as I said when I was introducing the paper, I'm not sure if you were there, but it's about capacity, and it's about the level of risk that's involved in the criteria they put together around levelling up fund, which is something that we as with Core Cities, LJ City Regions Board, and other work are constantly making with government, as well. So it's a competitive fund with bids assessed against the criteria as set out by government. The government, the criteria includes where areas are placed in the government's index of priority places. Bristol's placed in category 2. So bids from our city will not be weighed as strongly as those from areas identified as category 1. So we had to identify and develop the highest quality bids, including those most likely to be successful to stand the greatest chance of securing investment, and shovel-ready capital projects that fully met the other criteria gave us that strongest possible case. But it doesn't mean that we have constantly pointed out some of the challenges of this national funding mechanism and how it undermines our ability or doesn't enable local government to do all we would like to do. But we've got to do the best with the opportunity that presents itself to us, and this is the best we could do at this time. Do you have a follow-up? Okay, thank you very much. Any Cabinet member wish to comment on this item? Kai.
Yeah, just to speak up for the cycling centre, really. I think it's such a great project and an important project, not only for cycling proficiency and in, training people up who might be nervous about getting on a bike, but from a sports point of view, the facility from a British cycling point of view, cycling as a sport, is a regional facility. So in terms of participation in sport, bringing events and competitions to the city, this will be a really important site for that. So I'm really pleased to see it come forward.
Thanks very much. Don?
Thanks, yeah. As ward councillor, a portfolio as well, it's actually a transport portfolio. Lawrence Weston people are really excited about this and all the potential it has for the area. We need a lot of this. We need the kind of opportunity to improve health. We need the chance for young people to let off steam and do stuff. So yeah, it ticks a load of boxes for us, and I'm sort of trying to manage expectations a little bit because I realise this is just a bid going in, but somehow we're going to make this happen because it's just the right thing, Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any others? Tom?
I think I just want to express my support for both of these, but also just to talk briefly to the Philwood Broadway proposals as well. And in response to statements, I've offered to come out to Philwood to meet with the group so we can kind of go through the concerns. I'm aware they largely focus around access to the cinema site and also the trying to get a supermarket there, which I know has been a long-held ambition that's not changed from that framework, and want to make sure we do what we can along with the local councils who I know are working really hard with you all to try and get something in place. So, I will be coming out to kind of work with you on that.
Thank you. Okay. A few things. One is, let's hope that as well that having all these people in Bristol over the weekend at the big tent will only continue to build our reputation. This place is getting stuff done, and our attractiveness to public and private investment for delivering, both for us, for the West of England, but for the country, as a whole. In terms of existing plans, as this comes forward, we do expect the organisation to engage with what's there. When we pulled the city together to write the One City plan that I didn't write, that the city wrote, we didn't start with council officers just writing a plan. We started with what strategies are already out there and what are they saying is going to get done by when. With those anchor dates in, then we began to get our partners and everyone to write around those existing strategies. We'd expect the same principles to be in place, that as we go and look at what any scheme looks like in a local area, we look at what's already happening. In our corporate strategy, which I'm sure everyone's worked through, we talk about services, but we also talk about development. So we are a development organisation. We're not just a collection of services that get pumped out into the lives of people of Bristol. We should be there working with people to become more powerful communities. And when I think of my days working at Tier Fund, if if tier funders working in a community in Philippines, say, and they start providing a service, and in 10 years they're providing the same service, they've failed. They've created dependency, colonial mentality. That's not what we want here. Our interaction with our community should be about empowerment, local leadership, and we should be complementing and enabling that. So we'd expect there to be an engagement. I mean, I'd say in terms of councillor participation in these events, you shouldn't have to wait for Cabinet to come and say, if a council officer is saying something in a meeting and you're a councillor in that meeting and they're saying something that is out of kilter with the way we want to lead the city, shouldn't leave that meeting without that issue being resolved.
I have emailed on that and got an unsatisfactory response as well.
Okay,
so,
well
but I'll talk to you afterwards, Marvin. Thanks.
Yeah, and come and talk before as well. You know, because we can get onto that. We want that engagement and we want that long-term planning. But as we've said many times in this chamber, we have 70 councillors. If 71 people are leading politically and actually engaging, community organising, making stuff happen, it's much better than if a few people are leading and 60-odd people are asking questions of those few people without actually driving leadership. So we really need to up the ante on that. And actually in a couple of years, that really needs to that's a big consideration for the thoughts going on in the committee at the moment that's organising the committees. So let me come to the end of my few comments there. Thank you everyone for your contributions, statements, questions, and comments. I will now take the decision which will be displayed on the screen. And in terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report. Okay, on to agenda item 15, Council Tax Reduction Scheme, and I'm going to introduce this report on behalf of Councillor Craig Cheney, who's given his apologies for the day. So the report seeks approval for the 2023-24 Council Tax Reduction Scheme. So despite reduced support from central government, Bristol remains one of a few local authorities to keep its level of council tax support at pre-2013 levels, for nearly 3/4 of working age households, including reductions of up to 100% of a household's liability. 90% of local authorities and all core cities have reduced support over the years, with the most common option being the introduction of a minimum payment of around 20%. Bristol's scheme currently supports 34,300 households, of which just over 24,000 are working age. Many live in the most deprived wards, have high needs of indebtedness, and some are of the most vulnerable in the city, all at a time where there is an increasing pressure on household finances with the cost of living crisis. The Council has a statutory obligation to design and annually review its own working age council tax reduction scheme to assist low-income households with their council tax liability. Pensioners are protected via a national scheme. The estimated cost for 2023-24 is almost £44 million based on a 1.99% increase in council tax and no changes in the caseload. However, our estimates based on assumptions of changes in caseload and council tax itself show these costs could vary between just over £42 million and almost £46 million. Noting some of these costs include the precepts levied by the Police Crime Commissioner and Avon Fire Authority. So this report contains further modelling that shows the costs if funding for the scheme were reduced. There are no changes proposed in respect to the 2023-24 scheme, and it's recommended that Cabinet approves the Council Tax Reduction Scheme for 2023-24. We've received one public forum question on this item, and it's from Councillor Christine Townsend. Christine?
It's a data question about the breakdown for working age households that are receiving the council tax reduction funding by how they're living. So whether they're council tenants, social rent, private rent. We're trying to work out how many private renting households are in receipt of council tax reduction.
Okay, well, I have a number here. I'll read some out to you. We'll send them out to you after, but tell us if anything's missing and we'll make up for that. So the breakdown of council tax reduction working age households by tenure as at June 2022 is as follows. 6,251 council tenants, 2,959 housing association RSL tenants, 1,791 private rented sector tenants, that's 1,791, 260 temporary homeless tenants, and 12,794 not known. Total 24,055. Please note there are many households whose 10 years unknown, which will include homeowners due to data not being available to us as their housing costs are being met by universal credit as well. But if you need more information, let us know. We can share it outside. Did you have a supplementary? No? Okay, thank you. Any Cabinet members wish to comment on this? Helen?
Yeah, definitely. It was me who led the ask of your predecessor to reinstate the council tax reduction scheme when he proposed taking it out before your administration. And when you look at the map and the deep purple part of the map and where those communities are, you can understand why I do that with my Hartcliffe and Withywood hat on. And it's inconceivable, isn't it, that we would stop doing this at this time when we know how badly those communities are hit. So thank goodness that we've retained the commitment to it and that we recognise that it's a lifesaver for many families.
Yeah, Tom.
Just like to express my support on this as well. It's helped so many Bristolians in the city out, and at a time when cost of living is shooting up, it's more vital than ever. And I think the other thing that for us to consider as well is, like, if we don't have things like this, the costs just show up elsewhere, don't they? If we're not providing it here, we'll pay for it another way. So it's good that we've been able to retain the level despite the horrible pressures local government funding are under at the moment as a result of extensive Tory government cuts for over a decade.
Asha?
Yeah, I was going to kind of echo the same concerns given, the cost of living crisis that we are in. This is a real lifesaver for many thousands of Bristolians here in the city. And I commend our administration for staying true to what we believe in, and that's protecting the most vulnerable in this city. And so, yeah, kudos to us. I don't, we stuck by our guns, and thank you, Helen, for making the case and getting it reintroduced so that, like we say, protect the most vulnerable in this city. Thank you.
Yeah, please come back.
I'll make the point that I've made when we've discussed this over the years, is that, the people who are getting this additional support aren't salting it away in the Cayman Islands or anywhere else. They're spending it in local shops. So actually the sustainability of local communities is also dependent on this, and that's essential if people are going to be able to carry on accessing decent, cheap food and so on. So I do think that that's an aspect of it that sometimes is overlooked.
Thank you, Helen. And it hasn't been easy maintaining it. Coming on £40-odd million to do this. This is a sizable part of our annual spend as an authority, but we do see it as essential. I mean, I suppose I just would take the opportunity to make the point that these kinds of things going on constantly, don't they? Almost invisibly. The council tax reduction scheme only gets picked up if it was cancelled. But these just constant interventions, the Meals on Wheels that we talked about earlier on. And so it's all very well to be on Twitter and all that, pointing out issues around the margins, but these fundamental issues that are going on: house building, council tax reduction scheme, feeding people, investing in our public health. This is the meat and potatoes. My apologies to any vegetarians out there, but the meat and potatoes of being a compassionate, inclusive city that we have to protect. Have you switched, Tony? Come on, I thought you might have. But it's absolutely essential. The point you make as well, Tom, about the cost just turning up elsewhere. This is one of the dilemmas, isn't it, of local government, again, not just being a service provider, but being an early intervention. because actually the costs that we avoid by these kind of interventions are not just costs to council services. They're costs to the National Health Service, to education, to the criminal justice system. And at the moment, which has always been a dilemma when I was working in public health, is we don't really have a way of tracking what a £1 intervention in the council tax reduction scheme means for saving maybe £5 in a health intervention in 20, 25 years' time because of, I'm not saying what those are the ratios, but we don't do that in a joined up way. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's certainly something we need to begin taking into account as a city. We need to do it, but which we try, but we certainly need to start doing that as a country as well. And to fully understand the role of local government as an early intervention in the best traditions of public health, which is one of the reasons public health came over to local government, because you determine health through social policy, such as tackling poverty. All right, thank you very much for your comments and your questions, everyone. So I'm now going to take the decision, which will be displayed on the screen. And in terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report. Okay, Finance Outturn Report. This is agenda item 16, and I'm going to introduce this report again on behalf of Councillor Craig Cheney. This report provides information for Cabinet about the Council's financial performance in the previous 2021-22 financial year. The 21-22 financial year was one where the impacts of COVID were still being felt, and in the latter part of the year, the effects of inflation began to impact, particularly on energy prices. However, despite this, the prudent approach to financial planning adopted by the Council and strong financial management throughout the period has meant that we have ended the year with a small revenue underspend of £0.9 million, which is 0.2% of the overall £424 million budget. The largest drivers for the changes that came about in the final quarter of the year were increased costs of energy, which were more than offset by income received from the Clinical Commissioning Group and the National Health Service being better than had been forecast earlier in the year. So the report recommends that the residual underspend be used to replenish the resources operational reserve by £0.2 million and that £0.2 million be used to reinstate the Mayor's discretionary and non-staff related budget, both of which are in line with the 2022-23 alternative budget amendment agreements, and that the remaining £0.5 million be transferred to the Council's general reserve. On the HRA, there is an underspend of £3.8 million, which is 3.5% of the HRA budget of £107.9 million. The DSG has overspent by £14.6 million, meaning that the cumulative deficit carried forward is now £24.6 million. The capital programme outturn is £167.3 million, which is an underspend of £36.4 million. That's 18% of the revised budget. So the report updates Cabinet on the delivery of savings in 21-22, where 5.4 million, that's 46% of the savings, have been achieved on a recurrent basis. The report finally sets out the Council's planned financial reporting timetable for the 22-23 financial year, which recommends a move to a programme of detailed quarterly Cabinet reports, with exception reports being presented to Cabinet in the intervening periods. So we've received one public forum question on this report, and the question is from Councillor Heather Mack. Councillor Mack.
In February, the majority of councillors in this hall voted for increased funding to improve safety outside schools, increase investment in local parks and reopen public toilets. When faced with nearly £1 million underspend from last year, why has it been decided that the money should go to the Mayor's office and reserves instead of what was clearly the democratic priorities within this chamber?
Well, the Mayor's office works on delivering the democratic priorities as voted for by the people of Bristol. They voted for the Mayor's office, and that's what we do. And this includes supporting the mayoral commissions in their work, events such as the Falklands War Memorial this coming weekend, the City Leadership Programme, the City Poet, and the work that we talked earlier on about safer streets and the outreach we've done with young people across the city. The recommendations in this report are made in line with the Chamber's democratic priorities when it passed our budget in February. So it's pretty straightforward. Did you have a supplementary question?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other, we've nothing else in public forum. Any Cabinet members wish to comment on this item? No? Okay. Well, thanks for your question. I will now take the decision, which will be displayed on the screen. So in terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report. So agenda item 17, Digital Strategy 2022 to 27. And I'm going to introduce this report again. So Cabinet members will be aware that the Council has made considerable investment in transforming and upgrading our IT and digital infrastructure. This report asks Cabinet to approve a new digital strategy, setting out our aims for the next 5 years that digital projects coming forward will align with. As we've set out in the report, getting our digital offer right is crucial. As a council, we run a huge range of services, all of which increasingly rely on digital technology, both so citizens can access services and council officers can work collaboratively and effectively. The report also sets out our ongoing commitment to tackle digital exclusion in our communities. This builds on the digital inclusion scheme we brought forward during the pandemic, where we donate recycled Bristol City Council laptops to residents and provide data and an introductory digital skills course for groups with limited or no access to the internet and online information and services. So we've received one public forum question on this report, and that is from Councillor David Wilcox. Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you, Mayor Rees. The proposed digital strategy is an excellent plan to best utilise the information technology assets of Bristol City Council for its staff and citizens. I am, however, concerned that the section for Ambition 2, Simple, Stable and Secure, talks about achieving ISO 27000 accreditation. Since the Council has not even got the National Cyber Security Centre Cyber Essentials certification, this will be a challenge to achieve. Can I have some assurance that we will achieve this stepping stone before going over to full ISO 27000, please?
So Councillor Cheney is the head of digital and he's currently away, so we'll give Craig an opportunity to come back to you with a fuller response after this meeting. But steps towards this are being addressed regularly at the Information and Governance Board, which is chaired by the Director of Legal Democratic Services, who is our Senior Information Risk Owner and sitting on my left at this meeting now. Both Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus are already being considered as part of the planning. Full ISO accreditation is not within the scope of the proposed digital transformation programme, which we anticipate seeing at Cabinet next month. But it is an aspiration within the 5-year life of the digital strategy. Did you have a supplementary?
No, but I'm gratified by that response. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've had nothing else in public forum. Can I ask any Cabinet members if they had any comments on this? Helen?
Sorry, I'm just so thrilled to see a picture of young people in Hartcliffe receiving the laptops in the scheme, in the strategy. It's just also to say that this isn't just a strategy about digitisation, is it? It's about how we support the digital agenda, supports the other things that we're doing. And obviously, in my portfolio, I'm thinking about the introduction of more tech-enabled care for people and being able to certainly not replace human support for people, but making sure that we've got the best support that we can. And increasingly, the people who will be coming to us needing support will be people who are used to using technology far more so than the previous generation. And it's right that we keep up with that. And so my plea is that as part of that transformation agenda, that I'm not saying it's the biggest priority, but that the IT function of the council supports that introduction of tech-enabled care more for adult social care.
Thanks, Helen. Asha?
Yeah, I welcome the strategy, and I can see quite clearly, because obviously during the height of the pandemic, and again kudos to ourselves for refurbishing and getting those laptops out to people in the communities. And what I love about the strategy is that it's both outward as well as inward facing. So I welcome the strategy, and I can see many of the ambitions within here are what was shared by partner organisations across the city as we were trying to address the digital exclusion of people. Thanks.
Thanks, Asha. Any others? Well, we should take the opportunity, actually, the way the city stepped up during the pandemic, when we looked at the consequences of people being left behind by a digital world, not necessarily having the laptops and the hardware, we've seen that in terms of social isolation, children being further disadvantaged in their educational journey. So it's essential we're on top of it. But as an organisation, just internally in our processes, we need to be on top of this and ourselves in terms of our security, people's ability to access our services in a straightforward, quick and meaningful way. So it is a welcome piece of work. I think any thoughts you have, Councillor Wilcox, you asked that question. You're welcome to feeding any ideas you have for how we can make this as good as possible, both for the function in the council, but in the wider city also. Okay. So I'll now take this decision, which will be displayed on the screen. So in terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report. Okay, on to agenda item 18, Microsoft desktop licensing, in-year uplift and future contracting. I'm with this paper also, because Craig's not here. So moving on from our exciting ambitions in the digital strategy, this item is very much focused on the less glamorous but the vital work of keeping the proverbial lights on. So as our strategy outlines, we now work on modern subscription-based software that is kept up to date much more effectively than our office software of old. And this paper recognises that with more colleagues now able to work in a flexible, agile way, using modern Microsoft platforms, following our hard work during the pandemic to provide modern tools, we need to make sure we have the right number of licenses for people to use Windows and the suite of Microsoft 365 applications for their everyday work. So with more staff now using this, the paper seeks an in-year extension of existing arrangements so everyone has what they need and permission to procure a longer-term contract for licensing of our key platforms. We're mindful that the world has changed and that subscription-based licensing is now the norm, which brings with it direct annual costs for every user. We cannot use our capital budgets for this like we did in the past for licenses that lasted many years for a one-off payment. This is very much the cost of doing business in the modern world and means that our costs are impacted more profoundly by user numbers than ever before. And this paper seeks permission up to an upper limit, but with careful management of consumption of licenses across the council, we can be hopeful to bring some of the costs down over time. So this proposal is really about making sure we have the essential software we need procured and provided in a way that meets the needs of procurement regulations. We've received one public forum question on this report, and that's from Councillor David Wilcox. So, Councillor Wilcox, would you like to ask your question?
Thank you, Mayor Rees. I completely understand the need to review the Microsoft Desktop License Scheme. I do, however, suggest you update the evidence-based paragraph in the report so it includes an up-to-date list of products. Microsoft Link, which is a precursor to Skype, has been retired since 2014. Can you please provide a timescale for retiring these products so that BCC does not need to purchase additional support and have the associated security risks of running the unsupported and out-of-date software? And they're things like Microsoft Windows 7, Microsoft Windows 8 and 8.1, Office 2013 and Office 2016, all of which I've seen officers and councillors using in the past 6 months.
You're taking me into deep water with your knowledge of the of all the latest tech. It's not something I have sleepless nights about. I like to turn it on and it works.
That's why I enjoy iPads so much.
Right. Well, so the decommissioning of all Windows 7 laptops and desktops is targeted to to complete in December this year. So the current focus is on the decommissioning of IT assets in public libraries, as these comprise most of the Windows 7 estate. The decommissioning of legacy servers is ongoing, with a target date of December this year, subject to Cabinet's approval of the proposed digital transformation programme, which officers are developing and hope to bring forward to Cabinet next month. So the aim will be to remove all instances of this old software, but given the size of the Council's IT estate and the complexity of its digital transformation programme, it may be towards the end of 23-24 before we can say every instance is actually dealt with. Did you have a supplementary question to that?
No, that's fine. I shall look forward to looking at it in audit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, any Cabinet members wish to comment on this? Ali? Okay. All right, okay. So I'll take this decision, which will now be displayed on the screen. And in terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report. So agenda item 19, expansion of the Climate and Ecological Emergency Programme. Kai, you're bringing this item?
Thanks, Marvin. I need to get a better mic, I think. I'm going to do something I don't normally do, and I'll take item 3 before item 1 on this report. And I think it's quite important for Cabinet to note, and you referenced it earlier on about the importance of our international work as a city and being on the world stage. This report's an example of where that's actually paid dividends. So I'd like Cabinet to note that we applied to be part of the European Union's 100 climate neutral and smart cities missions. Some people might have said, well, that's a big, why are you wasting your time? We're out of the EU now. But we decided to do it, and we were we were successful with that application alongside Glasgow. So it's like a really important achievement. I think that we were accepted as part of that programme, and I think it highlights the record Bristol's got on this agenda. It's part of the Horizon Research and Innovation Programme of the EU, and that's got a £95 billion budget. So it's really important, and there's a big opportunity there for this city to take advantage of. But even outside of the financial sort of benefit that we may get from this, there's also the advice that we've got access to, and the other partners that we've got access to take this agenda forward. So really important result for the city, I think, that we were accepted into that programme. I'd like to add a health warning to it. We don't know what's going on at the moment with the Northern Ireland Protocol and the argument the UK government's got. So it may be, if that goes south or it doesn't go, the UK breaches the Brexit deal, we might not be accepted into the programme. So that's just something to note. Back to the report. It's a £905,000 increase in the council's budget on this agenda, where we look to expand the work that we're doing on the ecological emergency. There's a previous report in November 2020 that had allocated 1 million of revenue and 3 million of reserve funding for work on the climate and ecological emergency programme. Where there were, in terms of the ecological emergency programme, which we've developed with partners in the city, the plan outlined 70 actions. Some were already funded, some need additional funding, hence the report. But we're making good progress, and we're on track with 75% or have completed those actions. So I think, despite the tight council finances, I think it shows the commitment that we've got to the climate and ecological emergency programme. Some of the actions within the report are quite practical and sort of back office in terms of preparing us for changes that are coming down the line. So one of them will be the biodiversity net gain regulations that are coming forward, where developers have to provide 10% uplift in biodiversity as a net gain. So it's the work around that to prepare the council to be able to, to deal with that change in regulation. But also other pieces of work like the green and blue space strategy, where we look at our rivers and water courses as well in the city. So quite a positive report. Commend it to the Cabinet.
Thanks very much, Kai. We've received 3 public forum questions on this item. The first is from Councillor Dart. Tony.
Yeah, thank you. I'm slightly embarrassed to ask this question now because in the scrutiny work programme set in a meeting earlier on, 3 different officers answered it beforehand. But I know Kai has got a properly prepared answer, so I will give him his opportunity.
Sorry, yeah. So if you've had the full answer, I'll kind of paraphrase and say, like, the actions connected to climate were in the paper in November 2020, and we've sort of gone through that programme. What this is dealing with is the expansion of the ecological side of the programmes. So the climate work is going on, or has gone on, but also this is a snapshot in time. So we'd like to add things into it as time goes on, over the coming 18 months. I have spotted sort of a small area that I think we need to do a bit more work on, and that's the economic side of climate change, about the jobs and the need and skills of the future and how we prepare for that. So I think that's something I've spotted, and I think going forward with officers, I'm trying to pull that together so we can maybe develop a proper plan or strategy in the city around that agenda, so we're making sure people benefit from the positive changes of dealing with the climate emergency.
Do you have a supplementary, Tony?
No supplementary.
All right. Thank you very much. The next 2 questions are from Councillor Casey Grant. Councillor Grant.
Sorry, thank you. Yes, so my well, maybe I'll ask my second question first, because it relates to what you've just been talking about, Kai, the Bristol City Council's inclusion in the European Union 100 Climate Neutral and Smart Cities mission. That's fantastic news. The report says funding for innovation and investment will be made available. Do we know how much funding and for actions in which sector? Sorry if this question is somehow also overlapping a bit with Tony's.
Yeah, no problem. So as I said before, the total Horizon budget in the EU is 95 billion, but this actual programme itself has got a budget line of 360 million, and that's focused on mobility, energy and urban planning. And that's just for the period 2021 to 2023. So we'll be able to work up projects that we think might be successful in obtaining funding from that pot. Even if we don't get, we don't get a large slice of that funding, what we'll have access to is technical advice and support from the Mission platform and a consortium of experts as well. So it's not just the financial benefit of being involved in the programme, it's the advice and networking and innovation that comes from that as well.
Do you have a supplementary or your second question?
I have a different question, but not a supplementary for that one.
Okay. Go ahead.
But I don't. Have you finished, Kai, on the environmental action plans? So my question was just about with this additional funds that's coming for ecological actions, and there's talk of herbicide reduction and managing green spaces for biodiversity. My question is about how local councillors and community groups can play a meaningful part in the process of prioritising green spaces for trialling low-mow, reduced or phased herbicide use, or for wildflower meadows.
Yeah, in terms of that project in general, we're currently assessing sites where we can trial and pilot different approaches. We'll be making direct contact with councillors to ensure that we capture ideas from councillors, because obviously there are differing views as well on this about what we do. We're currently designing a consultation and engagement process to give residents an opportunity to share their views or where they would like to see areas managed differently. So we're developing that at the moment. We should be able to share details with councillors on this process at the end of July, including an email address that councillors can send ideas into as well. And we will also be consulting on specific proposals when they are developed for individual sites as well. I hope that answered it.
Do you have a supplementary? Can I make a suggestion on that, Kai, actually? Because we had a bit of back and forth with officers today about reaching out. Maybe we can use the Environment Board email as a place where if you have suggestions right now, you can send them to the Environment Board and you co-chair that, and then it's held with the board as a place to have the conversation about the interaction between climate and ecology. So if you just look on the One City Office website, you'll see the email address for the Environment Board there. And I think that we can share that to all councillors, isn't it? If they have any ideas, they can send it in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there are no more, any other Cabinet members wish to comment? Ellie?
Hi, yeah, I really welcome this. I'd just say as well, the Parks Forum is quite a good platform to engage with because you get officers there as well as other local community groups who are interested in parks. That's a good way to engage. I think some of your fellow councillors come to that sometimes. Sorry, try to talk. But yeah, I think it's quite incredible to think that we manage 58% of parks land for nature already. I think that's quite an impressive statistic. And I just want to say thanks first. I think the Park Service has already, and our Parks and Green Space have already benefited quite from this grant, and we'll continue to do so with the work done by the team around herbicide and pesticide reduction, and also managing land for nature. I think it does have a lot of problems, so it has to be really well thought through because there's lots of nuance to it, and not everyone has the same views, and it impacts different areas than others, but it is travelling in the right direction, and I hope everyone's been enjoying the longer grass on our verges this spring, because that's been increasing every year as well. So it is moving in the right direction, and I really welcome it.
Thanks, Ellie. Anyone else? Okay. My small thing on that, actually, which is in your area as well, Kai, is we do go for no-mow, has to be tied up with what we do about litter, so they don't just become traps for litter as well. Yeah, otherwise they look unkempt and horrific. So it's one of those areas we have to catch at the same time, isn't it? But Kai, let me hand back to you now to take the decision which I support and which will be displayed on the screen, or any final comments you had.
Thanks for that, everybody. In terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report.
Thank you very much. So agenda item 20, extensions for preventing homelessness, accommodation pathways, adults 22+. Tom, you're bringing this item.
Thank you. So in May 2017, Cabinet approved the report on preventing homelessness accommodation pathways for adults of 22+, which agreed to commission services to help homeless households recover from homelessness and substance misuse. It was led by a commissioning plan which was published in May 2017 that aimed to help people recover from homelessness and ensure that homelessness is not repeated. So we're actually trying to fix the systemic issues by providing sustainable accommodation that was suitable with support to families and adults. Services that were covered by this include 3 homelessness accommodation pathways for single people and couples, 1 substance misuse accommodation pathway, which is funded in part through the substance misuse budget, a resettlement service and a peer support service as part of a wider substance misuse service. We're planning a wider review of the provision and developing a new commissioning plan for what we're doing around adults over 22 for housing and support services in late 22 and early 23, so that services can be procured and in place for the end of these extended contracts, which means we need to make full use of the extensions in the meantime. That's it.
Thanks very much, Tom. No public forum on this item. Any Cabinet members? Oh. Sorry? Oh, I've turned the page. We do have a question on this. My apologies. Didn't mean to miss you out, Councillor Dyer. Tony, would you like to ask you a question?
Yes, thank you. I know that the Member of Cabinet shares with me the commitment to ensure that those in desperate need of the services, such as those outlined in the report he's presented today, are not treated as second-class citizens. Can he highlight some of the measures introduced to ensure that those individuals and families who do need the support and facilities provided are safeguarded from those who may seek to take advantage of them in pursuit of their own financial objectives and thus provide suboptimal accommodation and facilities.
Obviously we'll send this on in writing as well. The Care Act 2014 underpins organisation responses to incidents and issues relating to safeguarding concerns. Each organisation delivering these services has to have robust safeguarding policies and procedures in place. And moreover, the organisations that deliver these services are, expected and do have close working relationships with our council's safeguarding adults team. Upon referral and entry into any one of these services, there are robust allocations policies that consider risk to residents who may be vulnerable to abuse, and management and staff teams working in these services are required to undertake safeguarding training, which provides a clear understanding of what constitutes abuse or neglect and how to report it. Residents are educated on how to recognise abuse and protect themselves from it, and moreover ensuring residents have access to support from social services, voluntary support agencies and health services. With the Pathways accommodation model and the way we've pulled it together, it's meant to engender inter-agency collaboration, we ensure there are clear strategic links with the Safeguarding Adults Board to ensure there's effective governance, open lines of communication to address safeguarding concerns in an effective and timely manner.
There was supplementary, Tony?
Yes, just a very brief one. If it's brought to our attention that a provider may not be abiding by those conditions, who would be the best person to bring that to the attention of?
So we've got, if it's like an issue around abuse, you go through the processes and contact Care Direct, as is outlined on the, I think it's the Safeguarding Adults, keeps safeguarding Bristol. I'm kind of looking at Helen. We'll send it on. I've just forgotten. Baby brain.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and to double up on that, so if the responses don't forthcoming, please just get in touch with us direct as well, so we know, and we can make sure appropriate action is taken. Any other Cabinet members wish to comment on this item? No? Okay. So thank you. Thanks for your question. I'll now hand back to Tom to take the decision, which I support and which will be displayed on the screen.
In terms of decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report.
And the last item, agenda item 21, is also with you, Tom. Housing IT and Transformation Programme, approval of the outline business case.
Well, we've had a bit of a discussion around things like digital and IT today, so who says it can't be sexy and interesting? This paper is being brought today to seek approval of the outline business case and authority to proceed with phase 2 of our Housing IT and Transformation Programme. We've got a number of IT systems within Housing Landlord Services that will reach end of life in May 2024. These systems range in age from 7 all the way to 20 years old and contain elements which are either out of manufacturer support or will reach this state by the date I've mentioned. They include our housing management system, which manages tenant and landlord needs and services and the delivery of them. Workforce scheduling systems, which deliver our maintenance and repair services to our tenants. Compliance, which enables the council to ensure that all housing meets regulatory standards. Asset management, helps to effectively manage and maintain our social housing stock across Bristol. Digital, so thinking about the rebuild and delivery of new applications, portals, etc. Want to make sure that our housing services are much more accessible for our tenants and landlords when they need to report a repair. It shouldn't be an arduous process. It should be nice, easy and simple, and they should be able to just track the progress of that. And there's also a number of supporting functions and subsystems that cover all aspects of social housing for our tenants and citizens, such as case management, choice-based letting system, homelessness support and support for vulnerable tenants. These systems do not support current business functions as is, and it's leading to numerous ineffective and expensive workarounds which affect productivity. For example, we cannot estimate cost or automatically schedule maintenance work, something that is just standard functionality within systems that are used by our peers. This has led to various symbiotic issues where poor systems have led to poor processes and poor business practices. Both require addressing, but neither can be done in isolation. Hence, this programme is much about transformation of how we work as much as it is about the digital elements. The programme commenced in January 2022 to ensure that the systems supporting our critical housing our housing services could be replaced by the date we need them replaced. And make sure we do that business process work as well. It also aligns with our current BCC business and ICT strategies, such as Digital First. And so I commend this report to Cabinet.
Thanks very much, Tom. We've had no public forum on this item. Any Cabinet members wish to comment? No. Okay. Well, thank you, Tom, for your work on this. Let me hand back to you now to take the decision, which I support, and which will be displayed on the screen.
In terms of decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everyone, for today. It's the end of today's Cabinet meeting. The date of the next Cabinet meeting is the 12th of July, 2022. Okay, so see you then. Take care.